heart of intelligence in computer. And I just personally want to thank Bumi for granting our request despite our back and forth and being very responsive. And at this point, Bumi, I hope you're ready because I'm about to stop sharing so that you can share and you can kick off the session. Let's welcome Bumi by dropping an emoji, however you can show your excitement. We are very excited and we've been waiting for this day, Bumi. Thank you.
Hey. Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know. Can I go on without my video or
Do you have a slide?
I do.
Yes, you can share your slide. Let's just slide.
Right. Okay, so um my slide today is like super duper short. Um okay, still trying to put it on. A second. Okay. All right, so what I'm still trying to get out of. Um Today's session is going to be about human evaluation, and I'm sure that that's not probably not new to many of us, right? You know about you're a human, right? Um, we've built systems, we've built maybe some of you have experience in software engineering and um, and you've tried to build stuff in the past. You have software tests, you have all sort of tests to ensure that whatever systems that we build is usable, is useful, is responsible, and most importantly, it's safe, right? And human-centered evaluation itself is like it's a global discourse where you have researchers from top fields, you have organizations, you have governments, you have world leaders trying to see how um, we are not just progressing in technology, but building technology that preserves preserves the whole human race, um, preserves our humanness, right? Not just building, not about doomsday AI in particular, but think about human beings, think about what it means i- to be human, our livelihoods, our well-being, and this cuts across so many things. I'm sure that right now, quite a number of us are quite concerned about sustainability in terms of employment, right? What job am I going to get on? How am I going to live? What's the next 4 5 years for me like, right? And within latest Amazon announced layoff, right? Over 600,000 workers. That's a very large number. And you're asking, so what does this mean for us as humans? What does this mean for the future of technology? What does this mean for me as a developer or an engineer or a student or whatever really, right? And that's why this topic is really, really important. So there've also been conversations around AI alignment, where you're not just concerned about um, building AI systems, but you want to make sure that they are closely aligned to our values, and so you don't run into the case of having a super intelligence that kicks us out of the planet, that kind of thing, right? And so today's session is, like I said, very short slides, but I intend to like try to make it interactive, and if you have questions, you can drop it. And I also try to make it relatable, but I'm giving a like precursor to the fact that there'll be strange terms you probably have not heard before, but it's fine. Right. So what is human-centered evaluation? I've given like a background to what it means in our everyday move. But then when it comes to building AI systems, AI models, AI research, um, what does it mean, right? For those of you who probably have built a machine learning model before, you're thinking of, once the accuracy is 99%, I know that I'm the guru, like I did it. And for those people who participate in a lot of hackathons, this is, I mean, evaluation is what literally puts you number one or number two or number three. But in the real world, you're not really looking at whose model is most accurate, right? You're looking at how whose model supports people's goals, people's values. Talk about recruitment, right? For instance, using AI in recruitment is not new, but then I don't know. I prefer if the organization tells me AI is going to review my application so that I can cushion against it, because how does that affect my own goal, right? How does it affect the society where I am? Because AI adoption varies across places. So maybe if, for instance, your startup idea is an AI powered or AI enabled system that is the recruitment process, you also have to take into cognizance of the social context that you're deploying your solution to, right? So, and like that is like super, super important, because if you take your solution to a place where the AI adoption is not really large, or there's a lot of mistrust around AI, you're likely going to fail. It's like you're not in the right setting, right? And now in human evaluation, human-centered evaluation, you're looking at also putting into quantitative and qualitative risk, right? So not just like, okay, if it gives a certain figure, or if it exceeds a certain threshold, or if you can count this or count that. Because most of our human interaction with systems are usually not always quantitative, right? They're mostly qualitative, even though we try to quantify those qualitative measures. For instance, I work a lot with advertising data sets. So we've tried to really, really quantify everything we want to know about a particular user at a particular time t, right? They're not just checking if you click this. I mean, these are like basic things. Did you click it? Did you see it? Even the things that happen indirectly, right? Okay, what maybe, for instance, someone saw a shoe ad and didn't click on that shoe ad, waited for like maybe 5 hours, and went to type that shoe. So how do you connect the fact that the person saw the shoe ad and went to buy the shoe 5 hours ago, right? And 5 hours later. So we try to like do that quantification. Like these are not like quantifiable things, right? You like traditionally you just say, okay, if the person clicks on the ad, um, then you say, okay, this ad has like maybe good performance or something. But now, even when you're looking for a shoe, if you see the shoe ad, like I do that sometimes, right? You deliberately not click on that shoe ad and you go click on something else, right? Just to say, okay, I am not submitting to this ad, right? And that is also a human behavior. So how do you quantify things like that? And now you're seeing that human-centered evaluation isn't just about numbers, right? It's about human behavior, right? Human attitude, and bringing all these into cognizance when you're building systems that people get to use. I know, like in your head, like it's just beginning to grow and expand, because that is actually how it should be, right? And we also want to be able to measure trust, want to be able to measure usability. So usability is very different from usefulness. So the fact that something is useful doesn't make it usable. The fact that something is usable, maybe not useful, right? You want to understand fairness, and there's a reason why it is perceived fairness, because what is fair to person A is not necessarily fair to person B, right? What is fair to someone who's white, not fair to someone who's dark, and and things like that. So what is fair to someone who's from a rich background, right? A Nepo kid is probably not fair to someone who's a Lapo kid, right? So you have like um these questions everywhere, and that's why it's more like perceived fairness. So what does this person perceive to be fair? and then you compare that to more like a larger base of users. And also explanation. So you want to understand, okay, can I really understand what works? What is going on? How does it work and stuff like that? And the world has gradually moved from having just assuming that AI is a black box, right? Yes, there's still many algorithms are still black boxes, but there have been like various approaches to explain those black boxes or build the algorithms in such a way that they will be explainable. So, and you're asking yourself, why do I need to explain? Because you want to understand cases where there might be bias, right? There might be misjudgments, and it to you it may not really bother unless you're the victim of this bias, right? Or you're the victim of this misjudgment or something like that, right? And imagine, for instance, now somebody, maybe there is like another VC school or something like YC Combinator, and maybe the final process, final stage, they use AI to select. So your startup enlisted, maybe you've gone through stage one, stage two, stage three, and then you were rejected, and in your head you're like, you think you did your best, you think like you met like all criterias, and even the uh the people at the back probably don't really know why you were rejected, but just know that the AI system said nah. And VCs want to maximize return. So they're like, nah, maybe it was never good or the same. But being able to explain and understand helps say, okay, this was the reason, this is probably like what this is. And this is literally determining. Sometimes these are like really critical. Imagine if this is determining if someone's startup gets funding or not, right? If it gets accepted, someone gets admission into a school or not, like really, really critical life choices. And that's why you really understand that um, explanation and explainability is like super, super important. Okay. So I've said a lot, and I think I've given like some background. And today, we'll try to cover what is human-centered AI, why you should be concerned about it, some of what's going on in the research. I said some because there's just so much. When I was trying to prepare for this, like there are just too many papers, too many like research, and I also try to tie this to some things that I see right as an AI engineer, like in my day-to-day relation. And also, when we talk about human evaluation, what are we talking about? Like, what are the dimensions? And also, I include the last session is like more personal to me because I raised this conversation recently. Um, I was sort of, I think I was in a session and talking about human evaluation and okay, being like talking about global perspectives. And it's just like Africa was they just don't care about us. So you know, and I feel like this is something that we should, if the world won't start a conversation for us, we can start that conversation ourselves, right? So, like I said, HCAI is, it includes like a set of method, process, metrics, um, to judge AI systems, right? So you want to see how it aligns with human goals, with values, um, with behaviors, and so on and so forth, right? And this alignment is really, really important because when you begin to tear down what it means to align, right? You think of culture, you think of um, geography, you think of demography, you begin to think of so many things, and it's like it just really begins to expand, right? So what does it mean for AI to align with someone in Lagos, right? An AI system, maybe that flags if this person is going to be, if this person is a worthy employee, right? Would this person um, be a potential fit, someone from Lagos and someone from the UK, right? So these two guys we want to employ them, but we want to know who is a better fit, given that they have like really, really good qualifications, right? So in this case, the AI alignment to someone in Lagos shouldn't be on the same base as someone in UK because obviously the opportunities that are open to both of them are different. But you want to make sure that whatever measurement or metrics or evaluation is given is fair to someone in Lagos and also fair to someone in the UK, right? So how do you sort of design these kind of systems? How do you incorporate them into your thinking, right? And I argue that this shouldn't even be like, okay, we build the AI system and then we're thinking of this. They should be in the very blueprints of how we build these systems, right? From the business question, like from where we are thinking of, okay, this is the business problem, this is what we want to solve. From the very business research, we should start thinking of how it aligns with human goals and values, not just how much money we're going to make from it, not just the possibility of market expansion, but also how safe is it, how is it going to align with values, who's going to use it. Um, we try to model like the intended use cases, right? Even though you possibly can model all, but then you really want to bring in that conversation from the very start, right? And you're not just thinking about algorithmic performance, but you're looking at usability, right? Trustworthiness, right? Because trust can be easily broken, right? You build an AI system that does this, and then it literally fails, and like the whole world says that, oh my god, this failed. And then it come again, you're like, okay, we do this. You're literally reducing your adoption rate because people think you're probably just gonna lie like you did before anyway. So you're not just measuring by algorithmic performance. Algorithmic performance is great, right? This helps you to, understand, okay, what are the internals of the model and stuff like that. But it is not enough, right? It is great for like a test case, but it is not enough in a real world setting, right? And it brings together like different key players. You're looking at guys from HCI, which is human computer interaction, looking at machine learning guys, you're bringing ethics guys, you're bringing um, guys from philosophy and social sciences, you also bring in guys from policy. So you have like all these key players sitting down together, brainstorming on how can we build a sustainable future, how can we make sure that the technology we're developing today, right, preserves us and also um, works with us, right? Doesn't just outlive us and then turn to that um, everyone's favorite sci-fi movie. So, um, in human-centered AI, like I said earlier, you have black box AI and then you have your white box AI. And black box is you don't know what is going on, right? You probably understand how the algorithms work. You understand the maths, you understand the calculus, the equations and stuff. But how it actually processes that, you probably do not understand. And then there's the white box AI where you can piece out the algorithm, you can decompose, um, and you can understand. So these are like the two kinds of AI. And in human-centered AI, a topic that has been recurrent, probably it's more like let's say hood house name, like a hood name or a house name rather, is reinforcement learning for human feedback. And in reinforcement learning, we try to build systems that learn optimal behavior. So it's like you're building a system that wants the best, and then you're using various interactions, okay, so reward and penalty to guide it to achieve that goal. But there's so many issues with this because bringing this to a human setting, right? So let's talk about maybe a classroom, for instance. You have a class of maybe 50 students, and you're like, at the end of the semester, the student who comes first is going to maybe receive 10 million naira. And then everyone's like, yes, they're gonna try. Like we're given a model scenario where everyone wants to get it. But in a typical, like in a real class, some people just don't care. Even if it's 100 million, they are not flinched anyway. But in this our model world, um, everyone wants to get to that 10 million euro. But we know that if the teacher doesn't come to class to teach, then you're making it like it's kind of hard to get there. So in this model world also, the teacher does like its very best to ensure that most most people get to that mark, to that first position mark, right? And so there are various trials and error that each student tries to do to, you know, either reading in the night, um, staying group discussions and stuff like that to achieve that goal. And now in the process, the greed in us will definitely try to find shortcuts to achieve that goal, right? And in reinforcement learning, the process of trying to find the shortcut, the bad shortcut that achieves that goal is what we refer to as reward hacking. Okay. But now we don't want to have that kind of stuff, right? We want it to be like humans are the ones saying, okay, um, this is good, this is bad, this is great, you know, giving that thumbs up, thumbs down. And that's where RLHF comes in, where you're training a reward model with direct human feedback, right? And how you collect this human feedback is it's literally up to the system design, right? And you use this to optimize the LLM or whatever AI system you're building. Okay, where it's like, okay, the person says this is good, or maybe you give two suggestions. This was suggestion the person chose, this was suggestion the person used, and things like that. And through that method, you can sort of guide the model to understand what human preferences are, you know, or what this person seems to like compared to the other person. And that can also make it personalized, where you're having that um, alignment on individual and also uh, global perspective. Okay, so explainable AI, which I refer to as XAI, I don't mean Twitter AI, right? It's a shorthand for explainable AI, right? And in explainable AI, of course, we want to understand what gave birth to this decision. We want to know what A plus what B give us C, right? And at its very, very core, we want to understand transparency, right? We want to know the degree to which its internal mechanics can be understood and can be expected. Can we tweak it? Can we piece it down, right? Think of maybe model decomposition, for example, in Bayesian, right? You're trying to decompose models to understand, okay, what part contributed to what part, and stuff like that. And also interpretability, which I ascribe to taking an abstract concept rather, into a domain that a human can perceive and comprehend, right? So maybe, for instance, I'm taking the concept of explanation and I'm bringing this into a domain where people can understand. Can people understand domain if I take this to um, maybe folks in psychology, they have their own explanation of interpretation and stuff like that. So that mapping, if you can create that mapping, then you know that your model is interpretable. If you can't create that mapping, where you cannot create what all these equations and stuff like that does to real decisions, right? Then you know that, okay, maybe the model isn't as interpretable as you think. And also justifiable, because you want to know that how, to what extent can you ascertain the results? Can you justify the results, right? Can you say, okay, the model gave me X. How sure is it that it's X? How many times, this begins to give you an idea of certain metrics you want to check. Okay, how many times will it continue to give me X? Under what circumstance, under what conditions, it's just like that. And they also, most importantly, trust. Because and the truth is that even we humans cannot explain our decisions, right? We cannot always say, oh, I bought this shoe because I thought. Sometimes you don't even know what gave you the inspiration to do this. You just did it, and no one really questions you, right? But that's humans. Can we give such power to AI systems and say, okay, maybe humans don't sometimes we don't understand, like fully explain our decisions. Can we hand over such autonomy to AI systems, right? Can we do that? But we can't do that if we don't trust them. So what degree of trust do we have in them? And the trust you have in someone is from you being able to converse with that person, understand that person. So we first need to understand. So an understanding sort of splits down into transparency, interpretability, justifiability, and all these kind of things. And that's why the concept of explainable AI super is super crucial in developing human-centered evaluation. And why it matters, right? The human race is more like ever evolving. So the we have like so many gens now, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen whatever, right? And these guys are not the same. What matters to Gen Z may not matter much to millennials, and it's just like that value system is different. And that's why like the techniques for evaluation, even email evaluation also have to evolve because even our world is evolving, our values are evolving, our morals are evolving, right? And also regulation. Um, we don't want to have institutions or governments create regulations that are out of touch with reality or progress. And that's why it's important that um, uh, their regulations are aligned with values, which makes our systems also aligned with us. So we want to create that pipeline of alignment. Sounds easy in theory, but in real world it's so complex and so difficult because you have too many no heads, right? Trying to have the conversation. And you know what happens when you have too many intelligent people in the room. you know, yeah. So that discourse is going on, and that's for the because they want to understand that okay, you're giving millions of people access to a technology you cannot explain. Make it make sense, right? And not just explain, you can't even fully quantify the impact of what you're doing. So how can we move from a disaster response to more like a risk aversion response where you already anticipate certain risks and you can put thresholds in place to properly address them, right? And this discussion is like tough because it's tough on the developers, those who develop the models, because they have to start thinking of various ways to um actually understand what's going on, put in policies, put in, measures, which costs money to actually do. It costs money, costs energy, costs effort, takes a lot of time. And I think I was in I joined a discussion where someone from OpenAI was talking about how long, how they sort of reduce models. You don't just, oh, we just built it, we just shoot it to production and then you pass all the tests and then we just no, it actually takes a while, build a model and you have some people come test it, like not just some sort of like handpick people from diverse places, and it has to pass through their own set of tests, right? But at the same time, you're also racing against competitors, you're racing against markets, right? You don't want your competitor to release that model before you. So it's like there's a lot going on when it comes to the development part, and then there's a lot going on when it comes to the regulatory part because they don't want you to push out something you're not certain and sure that it's safe, right? We don't want two sides everywhere because you want to make money and stuff like that, right? And also usability, right? To what extent is your system usable, right? Who uses it? Under what conditions do they use it? And questions like that. So, and also why it matters. I talked about how performance metrics are not sufficient because they don't translate to human value, right? Accuracy or FN score or whatever metric you're using doesn't directly translate to human value, right? And how do you, so are they sufficient? No. Then if you're not sufficient, we have to create metrics that helps us to do that. And We already have some of these techniques in software, like your classical software engineering, talk about A and B tests, right? But these metrics are also not sufficient because they also don't measure value. So they will more like measure usability, measure maybe attacks, check for bugs and stuff like that, you know. But they don't really measure if the software I'm building aligns to someone's culture or aligns to someone's value, or does it even um contribute to the real goal of human preservation? Maybe not. And that's why even those techniques are good, but they're not sufficient also. And so there's also risk of misuse, which is very high. Um, Unfair impact, where you're having someone being denied just because an algorithm says so. Um, Miscalibrated trust. And you also have, like I mentioned, where regulators and institutions really want human facing evidence. They really want um, people to, they want real results. They just want system tests, around. They want real results. They want to understand the practicality of the solution, the impacts, because like this affects real people, and sometimes it decides whether someone gets to live or die, right? Whether someone gets a life-changing opportunity, in terms of self-driving cars, whether someone gets permanently disabled or not, and that's why it's like a very, very important topic. So in in the research landscape, I would focus on human-centered evaluation and psychometrics, and also LLM's conversational systems. So they're like so much stuff the research world is currently talking about, right? But you cannot talk about human-centered evolution without talking about fairness, without talking about policy, without talking about accountability, right? Without talking about responsibility. So who's responsible for this? Without talking about alignment. So they're like um, a lot of conversations around this, and some of these are actually conferences on their own. So if you're really interested in knowing more, you can like go and you know check out the conference website and read more stuff like that. Okay, so um, under human-centered evaluation, um, you want to understand how do we validate trusts? How can we take trust um, from being like an abstract topic to being something that developers can use? I think in 2023, I wrote like a blog piece, sort of on how principles are very far apart from implementation. So imagine someone is the developer, right? And it probably doesn't want to build bad AI, right? It wants to build good AI. But then you read, maybe goes through the EU's AI act and stuff, and it's like, okay, how do I even build trustworthy? How can I take trust as a concept and put this into an algorithm? Because I mean, that's what I've been saying for the past few minutes now, right? How how do I do that? How do I build that, right? And that is hard because it is even harder to did I say conceptualize or kind of normalize what this concept mean, because they differ from place to place. And that's why it's really, really important for us, especially as African builders, to understand that we can't just copy and paste what works for X organization or X country into our own context, because we are literally sidelining ourselves, right? Where the core concept, like what does trust mean, right? So if you say what does trust mean to someone from a particular tribe, it is different from someone from another tribe. It's different from, not like it is very different in the sense we all probably have an idea of what trust is, but if you're saying, okay, saying this thing is trustworthy to this person, right? Given that alignment, then there are slight differences uh, as to what trust is. For some people, certain things are like deal breakers. For some people, they don't mind, and for some people, they just laugh over it. So um, we can have calibration metrics, right? That there are calibration, like quite a number of them that can help you measure these things. So for instance, uh, when I worked on the like paper for Niger Voices, and I was working on the human evaluation part. And how do humans actually evaluate LLMs, right? So like have a speech LLM that have been trained on three Nigerian languages, and you're trying to understand how accurate it is. Of course, we already had like the LLM scores, those metrics, but we really want to understand human interaction. And how do you do that? How do you say, okay, someone listens to an audio and says, I know this is AI. And someone listens to another audio and says, I'm not even sure this is AI. And someone listens to it and says, no, this is human. So how do you take that and put it into um, quantifiable quantifiable metric, right? And so look at using various means like maybe like it, using calculating using opinion score, just so that you can quantify, okay, rate this thing, give certain ratings. What do you feel about this? Like they're just like different ways you can capture those nuances that you would not get from your evaluation metrics, and then quantify them and also report. Okay, so they're like different metrics which you can sort of read about that capture these various nuances, whether it's a speech model, sorry, a text to speech, or a text to image, or whatever model you're building. But they're like different. There is even there was one I read about today where you're trying to, so the paper was trying to understand um people's evaluation of generated images. So how do I know if a particular image that is generated is good to this person or not? Like, how do you ascertain? Because if you generate an image, for instance, right, how do you know if it's good, if it's bad, without the person, um, I don't know. How do you do that? And then in that paper, what they tried to achieve was using text feedback. So using text feedback, so someone says, do this, that, and then from there you know that okay, this image that is generated is good on these terms or is bad on that on certain terms. Being able to distinguish and do something like sentiment analysis, sort of, and then use that as a feedback method to understand. Okay, next time I'm generating an image for this person, and I should not to do this or do that, right? And there's also another paper that talked about degree of explainability, and but more like relating this to more of the philosophical side to sort of quantify um, how much information is explained by AI, right? How much is this particular maybe algorithm, how much is it explainable, to what extent, to what degree? And this algorithm, or this metric rather, measures for similarity, measures for exactness, and measures for fruitfulness. And for those who are probably UI UX guys, you probably heard of psychometrics before, which is where you're trying to, um, it's more like a theory where you try to do some psychological measurements, right, on humans. And we'll adapt these techniques to human-centered evaluation, where we're not focused on the algorithms per se, but focusing on the human part of things, performing like psychological tests to ensure that even if they don't explicitly say that, oh, I don't like this or I don't like that, you can also tell that, because humans don't always say everything that is wrong. Sometimes it's your facial expression, sometimes it's your body language, your discomfort, or other things. So in LLMs, which I already talked about a bit, want to have human-centered benchmarks for hallucination, helpfulness, and harm. Um, for instance, using human evaluations for to combine this with human judgment. You have LLMs, you have humans, and you're trying to combine their judgments to um, create like a robust metric or something like that, right? Um, a practical use case of this could be, for instance, at work, we try to develop this solution where you detect if something is anomaly or not, right? So there's like an automated pipeline where your data goes in, happy and dancing and gets flagged or not by itself. But we also understand that dynamics in the data changes, and sometimes this absurd realities may not be captured by the nuance of this algorithm. And that's why there is a need to have like an interface that, like an alerting or monitoring interface where, alerts you when things something is wrong, something is absurd, this is out of nowhere. So in that case, that's like a human judgment combined with an automated judgment. But you can also expand this to this is more like a particular very niche use case. So you can expand this to like different algorithms that you're working on and have like see how you can make it maybe semi-automated, not fully automated. And this is even more critical in data reliant systems because many things can happen overnight, right? And having a fully automated system using LLMs can throw you off the guardrails. So having that human in the loop evaluation doesn't make your system less performant. It just guides against outbreaks or downtimes, stuff like that. And you can also have human evaluation for maybe you're trying to have like an LLM judge kind of thing. So I think this has been implemented partly, like some research. I'm trying to remember the paper right now. But what the research was talking about is having an LLM or like judge another LLM, right? And it's more like in this instead of reinforcement learning for human feedback. I don't think it's reinforcement learning for LLM feedback, but it's more like an internal judge. So you have the LLM judging itself, you have another LLM judging this LLM, and all these are happening within like microseconds that you don't even feel that, oh, somebody else is fact checking what somebody else is doing, right? And having LLMs to annotate, I also don't think this is also new, but this is also a part that supplements the human part. And also stress testing and jailbreaking, red teaming, things like this are also quite, they're also not new. You have um, people are even paid to do this. Sometimes you have organizations run hackathons to see who jailbreaks the algorithm, the model and stuff like that. And what this again tries to do is that human-centered evaluation where you try to understand what is it, even with all the guardrails that you think you impute into your model, you have to be sure that the model doesn't is robust enough for most cases. Can you really say that a model can be robust enough for all cases? Maybe not. Because again, like I said, humans are evolving, values are evolving, um, and they're like new ideas every day. So your hackers have like new ways to attack you again. Okay, and yeah. So okay, thank you. Right. So under human evaluations, you have they're like different dimensions. I kind of summarize it throughout on my talk, but The most common is performance and efficiency, right? Not just in terms of metrics, but also look at compute, look at resources, look at environmental impact, look at CO2 emissions. They're like, there is that part, which is also equally important. So it's not less important anyway, right? But then there are also the other parts that relates to us as humans: usability, inability, fairness, safety, socio-technical impact, mental model alignment, like impact on, even impact on gender, impact on culture, impact on. So there are like countless studies you can actually do on this subject. So having a robust evaluation technically means encompassing all these aspects. So if you say, okay, my model has been robustly evaluated, then you want to check yourself against safety, right? Of course. Usability, okay. Mental model alignment, oh well. Trust, reliance, fairness, and these are, again, this depends on the context in which you're evaluating for, right? Where fairness to, like I said before, fairness is relative, and you have to ensure that you have a diverse team that's already like a diverse team to carry out this evaluation. So you're not thinking of having evaluation of you and your friend and maybe another friend, maybe some other people from the same place saying that we've developed robust metrics. No, you want to have a team of different people from different places evaluating your system. And in evaluation, you want to ask, there are like so many questions to ask, right? In terms of because people use AI systems to make decisions. So does it actually improve that decision making, or does it worsen it? And you can do that through maybe controlled user study, A and B test like you have in software engineering, um, pre and post checks to see, okay, so the AI gave you suggestion, what was the understanding before, what was the understanding after? Um, do they even understand the model? Do they understand what it's, um, do they understand the outputs? Do they understand what it's saying? There are different ways to check this. You can have like a comprehension test interview. You have people use your system and then you ask them questions after, and or you just have them use your system. You don't talk. You just observe, like an observation study where you watch them move around and then decide, and then you just take notes. You don't ask them questions. Even when they get stuck, you don't say, no, you're supposed to press here or do this. You watch them move around, make observations, and then check for their understanding. Um, Calibration, different ways to check for calibration, safety, intrusion, injection, and stuff like that. And fairness. So for fairness, you definitely wouldn't, you probably want to have like a lot of subgroups evaluate your system and ensure that um, it does not spare it, like between one person or the other. So you want to ensure that it's fair. Even when we're saying we're building African LLMs, you also want to check that your system is fair to Africans, right? And I think Africans is a very large word because contains like so many ethnic. Maybe we kind of misuse it because we don't understand. Okay, there are different countries, tribes, right, under Africa. And can you say that, oh, this LLM or this system that I'm pushing to Africans is fair compared to the study or the evaluation that I've done that has like a representative sample of Africans, right? And these are like instruments and metrics that you can use: behavioral, human, and also qualitative. Technical is what you're probably all familiar with, but then you have other ones too. Um, in designing human-centered evaluation, there are like different ways depending on, again, this is more like project dependent, but you want to know who are the stakeholders, right? This list should be as large as possible. Um, Metrics you want to measure for. I listed like all those ones the other time here. So how many of these do you want to, again, having all of this doesn't mean you have all of this for every single project. Some projects probably do not need any of, need all of this anyway. So the metrics you want to use, how you want to conduct that study, and again, it's an iterative process because while you're conducting that study, you realize like a lot of things and you go back to the drawing board, you improve and stuff like that. So now this is the last section of the talk, and it's more like encouraging us to take in the fact that many of these evaluation metrics that I've talked about are not developed in Africa, right? There are some that are developed in Africa. I'm not saying all, but many are not. And so they do not capture our nuance. They don't capture who we are. They don't capture our culture. They don't capture our essence. And it's not their fault, right? I mean, they're not us. But then this creates a gap and this creates possibilities, very interesting research directions that we can pick up and create these evaluation metrics that actually represent us, represent our values, represent things that we care about. And, you know, this is really important. This is really because if you're saying that you create an AI system for Africa, but the way you're evaluating that African system, that system for Africa, does not even match what Africa believes in, right? That is misalignment at the very start. So um, let's look at how can we develop systems that are human-centered in terms of evaluation, but most importantly, that those evaluation criteria are in our context. Okay, so and because the aim or the end goal of what we want to create is that whatever solutions that we build I can be used by us and can also be exported like to the global perspective, but directly copying and pasting from them probably not do us much good. Right. Um, yeah, this just summarizes what I just said. And thank you. I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Gumi. Thank you. That was very insightful and educative. There is one question by Christopher in the chat box. If you can see it, if not, I can read it out.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know I was muted. Okay, the question is saying, you explained reinforcement learning from human feedback is RLHF a way for human-centered AI evaluation, and how does this evaluation also apply to supervised and unsupervised learning models? Okay, um, yes, it is a way. It is one of the techniques. It's not the only. It doesn't mean that if you do RLHF, you've done human-centered AI evaluation, but it is one. Yes. This is currently used for LLMs, right? Because it is possible for you to have that interaction which reinforcement learning is built for. So if you're saying that, if you're thinking of using this technique in supervised or unsupervised learning, you want to ask yourself that the algorithm you're building, is it one that can use interaction, because reinforcement learning are interaction models. So can you apply interaction to that? Um, I mean, this can be something you probably want to explore. I don't want to discourage that, but there are other techniques that have been used for supervised. For instance, supervised learning, you have people using A and B tests. you have people conducting fairness, bias test, and things like that. Maybe not necessarily having that, but again, this could be something that you want to try. But again, uh, I don't think it directly applies to supervised. In terms of unsupervised learning, I think it depends. I don't really know the use case because unsupervised learning, for instance, like clustering, do you need that interaction? Do you do you need like a real-time recluster? I don't really understand how interaction fits in, but again, I don't know your use case. So if you have a particular use case that can help fine tune. I hope that answers the question.
Hi,
Yes, it
Christopher.
does. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bumi. Does any other person have a question for Bumi before we move on? Okay, I think I mean there's a rule of third that when a teaching has been made or a presentation, when people don't have any question, is either they understand very well or they don't. So I want to take it that people understand very well because that was very explanatory. Thank you so much, Bumi, for coming.
Yeah, I think
Um,
someone has a question.
okay, I just
Okay, do I see anything within Nigeria or Africa context that address ethical concerns?
okay.
Yeah, they're actually like I know about data regulations. So you asked me a very interesting question. If you're talking about Africa, yes, quite a number of countries are beginning to develop policies that influence how AI models or algorithms can be used. But in in Nigeria, um, I can say that you're having progress. Let's say it's progressive, or maybe not exactly where we want to be, but there is the awareness of which the government is aware. I'm also aware of conversations ongoing by like different stakeholders. This is not what you develop in a day anyway, but it's something that we should see. Um, but the fact that the government or organizations haven't necessarily put out something solid doesn't hinder us from considering this and implementing this in our own research also. Yes, it's a conversation. Yes.
Thank you so much. So Bumi, if you can please stop sharing so that
Okay.
I can share. Thank you so much. I mean, that was so insightful. Um, so I mean, if no other person has a question, thank you so much, Kaede. Really appreciate that you're joining all the way from the US. Thank you. Um, so just move on. Thank you, Bumi, again for coming on. We'll just quickly move on. We want to encourage everybody to please join us online. We're available on X and on LinkedIn. Please join us at Machine Learning Lagos on LinkedIn and ML in Lagos on Twitter. So quickly for upcoming events, I'm trying to remember because we're a bit over time. So we're looking forward to our November technical session and the office hour. We're going to announce that we're going to get the upcoming sessions via our emails and the community. Also, the ongoing study group. We should be having the summary for this week on Saturday, but then it will be communicated, the time and the speaker that is going to come on the day will be communicated. So stay plugged in. Um, And if you are on the group, remember to join, do your assignments, meet up with all of the courses, and so that you can benefit as much as possible on the group on Saturday. And also come with your questions. Yes, and then we have feedback for this session. I'm just going to quickly paste the link in the chat. Please, we would like to know what your thoughts are on the sessions, so that we can get better. And as we're planning for next year, we can know what to incorporate and what to remove. The feedback is very important to the community. So I'm just going to give some few seconds for people to click and then share their feedback. And just please, again, if you can, please check the chats and click the link that has just been shared and give your feedback. Very important to us for us to be able to do better in the community. Oh, it's not clickable. Okay. Give me a moment, please. Okay. I guess we'll just share that on the group again. I'm not sure why it's not clickable, but right here is going through. But okay, let me see. Let me try this again. Sorry, I think I figured it out. So give me a second. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. Please try this again. This should be. I'll also share it on the WhatsApp group. Yes. Please. Yes, that's it. If you can, but I'll also share with the community manager to share on the WhatsApp group. Sorry about that. Yeah. And with that, I believe that we've come to the end of the technical session for October. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for being a part of the community. Thank you, Bumi, once again. We're grateful for having you around and for such a very insightful session. All right, people. Till next month, and then Saturday, if you're on the study group.